If you look for Itchen Ferry Village on a modern map, you will search in vain. Like Brigadoon, it only appears as an almost mythical place on old maps. Itchen Ferry Village was, for most of its existence, just a small hamlet on the east side of the River Itchen, opposite the town of Southampton. The land had been owned by the Bishop of Winchester since before the Domesday Book. The oldest surviving map or plot of the area dates from 1596 and shows the bishop's mansion and a few houses near the river crossing point. The route was an important route up to Winchester and along the coast, following the old way to Canterbury. The village was dominated by just 3 or 4 families, notably the Diapers, Dibbles and Parkers, who made their living working as husbandmen on small plots of land, as fishermen, as carters, and, it is said, as smugglers. But one of the most important tasks was ferrying passengers across the river, one of the rights of the bishopric of Winchester. The village had 2 main focal points, the ferry crossing on the shore and then rising up to the green, which was dominated by a pear tree, planted, it is said, by Queen Elizabeth I. It formed part of the Manor of Woolston and had no substantial houses built there until the end of the 16th century, when Sir Francis Mill had Peartree House built for his daughter Frances and her husband Sir Richard Smith. Until 1620 there was no church or chapel in the village, and the villagers had to make the often perilous journey across the river to go to church at St Mary's in Southampton. Church-going was, of course, compulsory. Sir Richard Smith petitioned the Bishop of Winchester for the right to build a chapel, which was built in 1618. It was not consecrated until 1620, as there was no Anglican service of consecration available. Lancelot Andrews, Bishop of Winchester and compiler of the King James Bible, wrote one and consecrated the Jesus Chapel St Mary Extra, also known as Peartree Church, personally. All Anglican consecrations after this date used the Peartree template. The ferry boats were still the only way to cross the river, and many famous passengers made the trip, including Samuel Pepys and Jane Austen. Passengers would wait at the ancient cross house and wave to attract the ferry across. There were many complaints, however, that the ferrymen preferred to stay drinking in the local pub rather than pick up passengers. The design of the ferry boats, shown in the forefront of the image, were of a design specific to the local area. Each area around the coast would have their own designs to meet local conditions. In the background of the image, you can see the new steam floating bridge that came into service in 1836. The landscape around the village changed in the late 18th century. Southampton was a spa town and attracted not only visitors but new permanent residents who preferred the higher ground, rural aspect and magnificent views afforded if they built their villas on the Itchen Ferry Village side of the river. These were families who had made their money working for the East India Company, and there were a dozen Palladian-style residences built. By the end of the 19th century, things had changed again. Southampton had reverted to being a port town, and the ferry boat design had been adapted to create racing yachts. The ferry families, much prized as sailors, found new work racing J-class yachts. The skills that had developed yachts and boats were adapted to build aircraft in the beginning of the 20th century, and industrialisation saw large factories, Supermarine and Thorneycrofts, being built near to the old ferry crossing. Workers were attracted into the area and new housing built, and the area became known after the old manor name of Woolston. The building of the iconic Spitfire made the village vulnerable in the Second World War, and in 1940 most of the old village was obliterated in the Blitz. Families who had lived in the same spot for centuries were forced to move away. The steam ferry was replaced in 1974 when at long last a bridge was built over the River Itchen, destroying the old Hard. What remains are some buildings on the green, the church and old school, local folk songs like Poll of Itchen Ferry, and crafts like the silks made by the sailors depicting the vessels they sailed on. A collection of oral history and local history books, and the descendants of the ferry families, 10,000 of whom are remembered in the Diaper family tree.